Hello, darling. I'm so excited to be sharing a reading with you. Um, I'm sorry it's considerably later than when you actually requested it. It's just been one of those times. I also like to give each reading a lot of space, so it always takes a little bit more time and energy than just like the reading itself. Um, but um, I've been sitting here meditating on you and your energy, and as I shuffle the cards, that's kind of typical practice for me. That way, I really focus the reading on you and your energy and asking Spirit what messages should come through for you. Um, Using the Wildwood Tarot deck, I have a feeling you'll really like this guy. Let's see if I can get a good shot of it. Um, it's a very, you can see this is the book. This is bigger than any other book for a tarot deck I've seen, but um, it's based on the year of the wheel. It's very pagan, very earth spirituality based, and um, it's very nature driven. You'll see a lot of cards in here. I just have this feeling the heron's going to come up. We'll see. Um, we see a lot of animals and landscape type cards, and it's tied in with the year of the wheel. So that may be something that I reference along the way, which is a very pagan understanding of how we navigate the seasons and the changes in the year. So I don't I do think this is your first reading with me. So, what I usually advise people that I'm reading for is to really take a minute here to ground yourself and tune in. And and then as you're going through the reading, it's good to have a journal and a pen handy or just a piece of paper, something you can make notes on. And as something strikes you, as it creates resonance in your body, um, take note of what that is. And resonation is very similar to, let's say, like plucking guitar string. So you pluck that guitar string and it vibrates, like, and then that's how we get sound from a guitar. So, um, so when you feel, see, I'm going back and forth on temperature here. Um, when you feel something like that happen, no matter what the chord is that it strikes, write it down. Write down how you're feeling. Write down any images, thoughts, song lyrics, whatever that comes to mind. And usually, what I find is these are pieces to the puzzle. And so, once you're done with the reading, you can go back and kind of put the pieces together. Readings are interesting things in that they tend to work in a lot of symbolism. I tend to share like senses that I'm getting, feelings that I'm having, images, song lyrics, books I recommend, maybe an anecdote from my own life that comes to mind. And because of that, it may not always be fluid. So, a lot of times writing down the things that stir in you as you're listening will help you to understand the bigger picture and the bigger message that's being shared. So, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I usually give. I've bathed all my space, myself, and the cards in some sage smoke before starting here. And this deck of cards has been sitting under a piece of citrine, which is really good for clarity. And it's also really pretty and smooth. It's good for kind of keeping the deck clear. So I'm working with the Celtic cross spread, and And it's a pretty traditional spread with tarot. I'll show you what it looks like once I get all the cards laid here. I like it because it tends to give a pretty complete picture, at least of the situation at hand. It gives me a lot to work with. And I am not just looking at the individual meanings of cards, though I do share with you what the cards are so that you can take those if you have any that you're like specifically stuck on. You can take those and research meanings on your own. Biddy Tarot, BIDDYTARROT, is a great website for doing that, and I will occasionally reference her as well, sometimes even in a reading if I feel really stuck on something. What I'm looking for when I do that, and what I encourage people to look for, is words or phrases that stick out to you, that jump out. In other words, skim it. Don't read for a lot of content or detail. Skim it, and when something stands out, take note of that. That's what you write down in your journal. Because the reality is every card has such a wide variety of meanings. A lot of them are along a theme, but it's really what's really piquing your interest is the importance of that card has for you. So let me flip this around. Show you what we're working with here. Feel free to press pause if you want to take a deeper look. As you can see, these cards are just really gorgeous. I think you're going to like them. Super excited to share. Glasses are always a little funky. Okay, so in the position of, basically we've got 3 cards here in the main that are parallel to my horizon. And they represent the furthest left card is the recent past, the middle card is the current, and then the right card is the near future. And these all represent you. So where you are in the current state is number 9 of the major arcana, which is the Hooded Man. And if you're not familiar, the major arcana, there's the minor arcana and the major arcana in tarot. The minor arcana all have like a suit. So this is Knight of Vessels. They have a suit and then usually Knight or 10 or 3, something like that. Whereas the major arcana just has a number. And most tarot decks, that's a Roman numeral. The Hooded Man is the Hermit in the traditional tarot deck. And generally speaking, this represents kind of that energy of a bit of reclusiveness, but for the sake of spiritual guidance and growth. And so we see the Hooded Man with his lamp and through the darkness guiding the way. This is a very wintry landscape, but as you can see, there's a little bird here. So there's some symbolism that life still exists even when it feels like winter just completely surrounds you. And for you, this being like where you are in your current state, it could be that you are the Hermit. What it's more likely is that you are being guided by a spirit similar to this. So even though I think with this guy with his cloak on, there's almost this idea that your eyes are veiled, you don't know what's going on around you, like really you can only see what's directly in front of you. And so there's almost this sense that like things are going on in and around you, but you can't see them right now. And that's okay. Really, you're being guided. And what you have in front of you is, it's for a reason. That's all you need to focus on. And so don't get, and the reason is because that which is in front of you is big enough. So don't compound what you're experiencing there with fear that you're not also understanding everything else around you, because all of that's being taken care of. All you need to do is focus on what's directly in front of you and trust that you're going to be guided. The recent past, we have number 8 of the major arcana, which is the Stag. I love this guy. Look how powerful he is. Beating on a drum of with the tree of life. And the thing about the major arcana too is they tend to carry a more potent message than the minor arcana. So it's really fascinating that you have 2 cards coming up right away that are major arcana cards. That means they're just very strong themes in your life right now. The Stag. I'm going to pull that one up in the book here. So interestingly enough, the Stag comes around the spring equinox, which is a recent past moment for you. So this is interesting. It says the concepts of forgiveness and reward are not appropriate here. They are human ideas which have no reality in natural lore. One reaps what one has sown. Just as right or generous action brings fulfillment and peace, greed and vengeful desire bring bitter loneliness and disillusion. Balance will be maintained by the planet's ecosystem. The justice it dispenses is long-lasting, and it is both merciful and irrevocable in its final conclusions. On a personal level, some kind of adjustment or interaction has taken place. So what I'm getting the sense here is that the spring equinox is an important thing to keep in mind here with this. So I would really encourage you to go back to the spring equinox and note what happened there, and note if you, like, as you're reflecting, see if you found something that shifted the direction for you, most probably internally. So did something happen around that time where you just, things clicked? It was almost like a key in the knob, and it was like, you know, and there was no going back after that. No matter what happened, you were changed by that moment. And you may not be living that on the outside and the exterior yet, but you know it to be true on the interior. In your near future, we have the 6 of Arrows, just transition. So this is what you've got coming up. What you've got to look forward to is as kind of this state of, again, oh, this is interesting. Very interesting. Look, on the boat, it's our little hooded guy. So it's you here on this, and on a boat made of a swan. I have never noticed that before. So swan animal symbolism. Take a look at that. That's going to mean something to you. So then there's a card overlaying the 3, and this is, it usually serves as a bridge or a barrier from the recent past to the near future. So it's something that's going to trip you up, or it's something that's going to lead there for you. We've got the 4 of Arrows here. As you can see, this is a very graphic card. So it says it correlates with rest. It's kind of the command. What I love is the contradiction here of this guy who's almost been pinned to the ground with arrows, but then this giant butterfly taking up almost as much of the space in the card as the guy on the ground. And so this sense of what I'm getting from this is that it is both a bridge and a barrier, in the sense that if you allow yourself the rest that it takes for the caterpillar to become a butterfly, Think about what that means, that caterpillar going into almost like the hooded man, this sense of like hermitage, secluding itself and allowing itself to be transformed. If you allow that rest to happen, if you allow that space to really be created and transform you, I mean, the caterpillar is so fascinating because when it goes into the cocoon, it literally melts down and then is reformed. And I mean, melting is, you know, a term that we use for solids like melting. So it's not actually like melting, but there is this sense, there is this like um liquefying of the old and then solidifying of the new. And so you're in that space now, and if you allow it, if you can really drop your guard, trust that you're protected and allow that reformation to happen, you're going to find yourself in a place of transition. Now, that may freak you out. That may scare you. You may think, I'm not ready for that transition. And that may cause some knee jerk, like, I'm not going to, like, just almost like this clenching, like, I'm not going to let myself be melted down and reformed. And you have that option. That is always an option. would encourage you not to choose it. But of course the choice is yours. None of these things are inevitable. That's important to remember. It's like I can almost just sense you being like, you don't tell me what's going to happen. I determine what's going to happen. And it's true. It is really true. Because the thing is, if you decide to reject it and you don't rest, this will not happen. You won't move into this transition. It seems like you're on the fence, that you'd rather choose the barrier than the bridge. And you have the agency to do what you would like. And I can't give you a cost-benefit analysis for this. But what I would encourage you to do is, when you think of this card, and when I say you're going to be entering into a state of transition, I would encourage you to sit with that. Allow the fog of fear to dissipate, and then ask your heart if that's what it wants. And if you get a yes, then embrace the process. And if you get a no, then probably stop the video here, because this is all going to be geared on the idea of you moving into a state of transition. Okay, that's all that the rest of this reading supports. So if you're like, no, I really don't want this, then chuck it and we'll do another reading for you at another time. All right. So moving on, we have at the top of the cards that represent you, we have a card in your hopes field, and then we have a card below in the fears field. And in the hopes field is the Three of Bows. Really love this card. It's called Fulfillment. And I love that this person appears to be standing before the Tree of Life. They also have the intertwining serpents, which in a lot of traditions, that's a balance of masculine and feminine energy. It's interweaving itself. And it's funny, I don't know if you can see this, but the serpents have little glasses on. It's so funny to me. Again, it's our hooded figure, though. Funny how that keeps coming up. And so there's this idea that there's this hope that really what you're longing for is fulfillment. And if you can hold that as like, this is my hope, and let that guide you, you will get what you're looking for. The fear is Ace of Bows, Spark of Life. And I think the fear here is that you've felt this spark before in various other ventures. And those ventures weren't necessarily things that were authentic to your core. They were I don't want to use the word shadowed. They were like cousins, maybe, to your inauthentic self. They were these like almost like carbon copies. Like they looked a lot like it, and they may have even had a sliver of it in there. And so what happened was, even though the spark of life was lit, it quickly went out. And there's this fear in you that is what is happening again, that you can't be trusted to identify what is authentic to you. And so therefore the spark that's being lit is just going to go out anyway. Let me reassure you that is not what's happening. You are your most authentic self, and you're continuing to evolve into that person. The more honest you are with yourself, the more honest you are with the people around you, the more you move toward your authentic center, and the more you operate out of that. Sorry, it's street sweeping day apparently. It just got really loud. So don't let that fear be what guides you, okay? This is where trust comes into play in a huge, big, bad way. And that's going to be trust of both yourself and of universal forces that are guiding and moving you through this process, that are essentially orchestrating this for you for your own good. You gotta, interesting. Okay. Your emotions are going to be key here. You've got a lot of vessels showing up, which are vessels correspond with cups in the traditional tarot. Cups hold water, and water in this world symbolizes emotion and everything that's just deeper level shit. So your emotions are going to be huge. Pay a lot of attention to them. Be sensitive to them. And by sensitive, I mean hold them gently. Be kind to them. Okay? If you're disappointed about something, instead of being like, I hate feeling disappointed, I hate, it shouldn't be this way, like really piling it on, instead turn to that part of you and say, I can see why you'd be disappointed, and I'm sorry that you feel that way. I love you. And really hold and cradle it. Allow it to feel disappointed. Allow yourself to feel like whatever it is that you're feeling. It's going to be the best way for you to move forward through this process. So here's what I find interesting is that a lot of our figures over on this side that represent you are hooded. They're really clothed. And the next figure we have over on this side, which there are a lot of ways you can read these. I tend to go with my instincts of what I think they mean. With this guy, the 5 Vessels Ecstasy, I think this is more of an encouragement or a command to really pull back that hood, pull back the things that are holding you back and covering you. Trust she's standing in a pentacle, so she's safe. She's ultimately safe. And allow your real self to be seen. Dance, celebrate, allow this kind of, there's almost this like, I think of as ecstatic dance where that word ecstatic just came to mind, and probably because it's ecstasy. So ecstatic dance where you're just like, you just really allow the outer world hindrances to fall away, and you embrace who you are. And there's not a lot of head action going on here. This is very much emotion bubbling over, and just think about that, what that means to dance free, to really dance free. And this is an invitation for you to do that. The next one we have is the Queen of Vessels. So a lot of these guys are going to be tools or companions to guide you along the way. I would say the Queen of Vessels, it's a salmon. She's a companion energy for you. And, you know, the salmon, if we think about what the salmon does, it swims upstream to accomplish its greatest goal in life, which is procreation. And then shortly after, it fades away. And I think what this is partnering with you to say, I know it's going to feel like you're going upstream for a while. That's not going to be forever. But it's also your life's mission. It is the biggest, most important thing you're going to do in this life. And so even if it feels like it's going upstream, remember how important this is to you, to your core, that you follow this route that you're on, and that you're not alone. I mean, the salmon, they never do this alone. They never go upstream. I mean, you see them by the hundreds a lot of times when they're spotted. They're just like jumping out. So it's important to remember you're not alone. If you need to find a support group or a tribe of people who are similar, if you want that, just all you need to do is just open up to the universe and say, I'd like to find more people who are struggling in this way with me so that I don't have to move forward alone. And another part of that might also be just recognizing those who are already on your side, who are already championing you and encouraging this this movement in you, who are already helping to nurture what you are ready to, what you're going to be giving birth to, essentially. And then our third companion here is the Knight of Vessels, the eel. And the eel is really about going inward into the darker crevices of ourselves, the shadowy places, and just remembering that just because it's darker or shadowy, it's not the evil that like our Judeo-Christianity has taught us about darkness. It's actually a way to uncover and discover some of the deeper parts of yourself that just don't get much airtime. And those parts are still lovable and worth being loved. So when you go deeper, I think what eel is encouraging you to do is to go with intentionality and a deep, deep sense of compassion, love, and forgiveness. And so some of these areas you stumble upon, you might be really frustrated about and think, man, I thought I resolved this years ago. It's going to be really important to, instead of approaching it with a sense of, I got to beat this out of me until it's gone, lovingly hold it and welcome it to the table of you. Okay? Because it is a part of you. And it may be a shadowy part that learned how to deal with the world around it by through some warped mechanisms. But the reality is it did that ultimately to serve you. And so if you acknowledge that and say, thank you, I really appreciate what you've done to serve me up until this point. It's no longer necessary that we operate this way, though. So let me give you some new tools. Let me see if I can offer you another way to operate within me that would better serve me. So my personal example of this is that I came to discover kind of in my interior family that there was an abusive father figure. And it's funny, he's kind of like a Ted Bundy is what he looks like. Um, um, and when I found him, I realized he was the one who would tell me like how worthless I was. He would question everything I was doing. He would doubt and tell me like I wasn't worthy or that I wasn't beautiful or smart enough, that I wasn't capable, that I deserved the bad things that were happening to me. Um, and initially I didn't know what to do with him. I pictured a couch and I was like, sit on the couch, don't move until I tell you. And then I gave myself some space, and when I came back, I said, okay, listen, you are a part of me, so I'm not going to cast you out. You are welcome at my table. You are not welcome to say these things to me anymore. And instead, you can tell me I'm beautiful and you can tell me I'm smart. And so he goes, fine, you're beautiful. And I felt this like rush of energy through the core of my body. And I knew how powerful at that moment his words have been to me. Because when he told me I was beautiful, it was like winter cleared and the sun came out and birds were singing and trees were blooming, and it was amazing. So when you encounter those parts of you and you notice that they're really trying to serve you, but they don't have the right tools, calmly remove those tools, give them the tools they need, and let them know what they can do to serve you better. That's all they're really trying to do, is serve you better. All right, our resolution card is the wheel. Number 10. This also corresponds to the world in the traditional tarot. So I'm feeling like I need to pull out my book here. So interestingly enough, this card comes at the autumn equinox. So where you kind of started with the spring equinox, it's almost as if all of this process is going to take you until the fall equinox, which is September 21st. Okay, so something to keep in mind. The wheel has turned. Change is at hand. In all nature there is a time and a tide. The cyclic laws of birth, death, and rebirth are ever revolving, and without change all things stagnate. How you deal with this change is the issue here. Within the tangled and tightly woven fabric of chance, you have the power to make a difference. By your own actions, you can change your life. You are not a prisoner of fate, but an integral part of it. Remember, this is not a dress rehearsal. Life is what happens to you while you are waiting for it to begin. Whether on the surface the chance appears to be for better or for worse, welcome it. Be at peace with it, and take control of your actions within it. All things must pass. You have some big changes coming up here, and that's not to scare you, but to serve as affirmation and comfort that if you're being told that now, then you're being seen. Then you are seen through the entirety of everything that's coming up. So even in the spaces where it feels like you may be completely alone, you are not. And the invitation in those moments is to really be a friend and confidant for yourself. So when you feel alone, this is not the time to go into a spiral about all the things that you are doing wrong, could have done wrong, could be doing better, etc. When you're feeling alone, it's a time to show up for yourself and say, it's okay, I'm here, and I will never leave you. And that's going to serve you well as you move forward, because there are going to be some lonely days ahead. And just as the Hermit shows us that reclusivity is not, does not mean, is not always a negative thing. Being lonely is not always going to be a negative thing. In fact, it's going to really help you to understand who you are, how you are wired, what you want from this life. I really sense that now is a time, it's kind of a crux for you figuring out what you want from this life. And in a real, honest, authentic, and convicting kind of way. In a way that helps you to own it so that you can move forward with that bold, strong courage and conviction that you desire. All right. We are about at the end of time, and I'm getting that that's the end of the messages for you this time around. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to relay those to me. Usually what I will tell people, though, I give them a bit of a disclosure that I often don't remember the readings that I do for people, and I don't go back and rewatch them. So if there's something specific you're curious about, please bring that up, and in the context of the reading, maybe I can help. But I usually, I kind of give the disclosure that I will usually point you back to your own higher power and to meditation to really think on the things that have struck you during this reading and to ask for further clarification. I do believe that when we ask for things like that, we are given them. So just open yourself up and give yourself that space to explore. Many blessings to you, darling. Thank you for letting me share with you. I am offering $5 credits for anyone who shares a referral source with me. If someone books a reading, then I credit you $5 towards your next reading. So something to consider if you feel like this was a helpful tool for you. Many blessings to you. Take care.